Hi, welcome to Business Filters podcast. I'm John Loydon. I'm one of your co-hosts here. I run a company called Hybrid Anchor, and we basically build websites and help people build digital software online.
And I'm Mark Conley, and I run and own a digital marketing agency. It is a one-stop shop for all your marketing.
So we're here on episode 11 today, Mark, and today we're actually talking about case studies, something I've advocated for a long time. Pretty sure you've got some really good thoughts on it as well. Why don't we jump right in and get started? So what's your background with case studies and why would you recommend them?
Well, being in marketing, case studies is a massive part of marketing. It's part of the marketing cycle. If somebody's going to be looking to buy from you, maybe not in a chocolate bar or something like that, but it's for something that's a bit of money, they're always looking for a testimonial. They're always looking for to read a case study to get a comparison of the other products, and it's so important. It's so important. You need to give your buyer a reason to believe, and that's where the kind of case studies come into. Not a lot of people use them enough, and a lot of people use them in the wrong way. So it would be good to obviously have this podcast to explore, some of
how
the
to do them well.
Yeah, how to do them well, and some of the things that we've seen, and it would be quite good. So, case studies for you. Have you done quite a lot of them, or have you done a lot of your clients?
I've always advocated for it. I think that a case study is almost like the CV equivalent for a business, if you think about it. So when you employ someone, you look at their CV and you say, that's interesting, they worked for BBC, he's worked for Bloomberg. So if you're going for a newsreader's kind of job, it's kind of that social proof. So what I've kind of noticed with case studies is if they're used correctly, it shows the type of work that you do. So for example, if I'm looking at, let's say, a gardener, and I'm thinking, right, I want them to maintain the grounds of a football stadium, how do I know that he's not just a gardener that cuts hedges and clips grass? Which is not to kind of poke fun at people that do that, but it's about kind of horses for courses. You want to make sure that person has a bit of a track record and experience. It's generally why face-to-face selling, I think, works so well, is because people can kind of they know what they're talking about. I can hear that. But of course, in the absence of that, how does that person know?
Yeah.
So I kind of look at the case study as the tripwire. It's the thing that you look at and say, okay, that person's worked with Rolex, they've worked with Cartier, they've worked with these high-end jewellers. I'm a high-end jeweller. They can definitely hit our calibre of client. You also see if it's good enough for Asda, it's good enough for me. So I think that putting case studies out there is so key to attracting the right type of clients. But there is things to kind of be careful of as well. If you think about it, let's say all your case studies are your blue chip clients. So in the past we've worked with like Universal Pictures, Costa. But if I put all that on our website, that's going to really put people off because they might say they only work with the big boys, they don't want to work with us, and you're thinking that couldn't be further for the truth. So we're trying to attract a range, and I think people need to be careful of that with case studies because you get what you put out. That's the kind of way there. What about yourself? How have you used them in the past?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we mostly have always done work in the past, business to business. So case studies are so important. And when I've worked in client side, it's been very much a marketing team supplies the sales team with leads and builds awareness. And the sales team, that is one of their tools, is the case study. Because every single question, it's probably one of the questions you get asked by a buyer is like, who have you done it for? Have you done it for our industry, or what's the success in your industry? So they need the case studies. They need to show that success story of the past. I've basically done them. I've done them in jobs where I have just been writing case studies and interviewing customers and things like that. I have a variety of ways that we've done it, in good ways as well. What we've done and what works really, really well is like video case studies, so using the power of video now. And we've done this just recently there with a client, and it was basically, obviously with COVID, you couldn't go out and do the kind of face-to-face meetings, so we actually done it via like Zoom, and done the case study via Zoom.
So what did you do with that? Did you ask them questions?
It's like an interview.
Right.
It's like an interview. So we as a marketing agency interviewed the customer, and we go through a kind of set question. So every case study should follow a process. So you should start with like the problem. What was the issue? What was the problem? Why did they actually need that service, that product? Then they should be looking at the solution, and then they should be looking at like the results. So how did they solve the problem, and then what was the result of that solution? So did they increase sales? Did they, save a lot of time? Whatever. So when I do it, and because of just my experience of having it, I have like a set amount of questions, and I just went through this kind of interview experience, and it was massively powerful. And I think as well, with doing it via Zoom, it was really easy and quick to get it up and running quickly and out and shared in social media, and then that's shared by their team and by the buyer as well. So there's lots of different eyes on it. It persuades people in their industry to kind of go,
pay attention to it.
If they're actually like getting success, or they've saved 100 man hours, if we get that, we would save 100 man hours as well. So it gets them then to increase inquiries. So a lot of it's so important, case studies, because a lot of people think of that top of the funnel approach where let's go and do spend a lot of money in advertising, let's go and spend all our time in social media and do all these things, but actually don't forget about maybe using something in the bottom of the funnel and being very targeted. Take a case study and then find an account that you want to try and target and say, this is the work that we've done. And it's like, as you just said there, it's like so important to kind of the selling sort of things, but it's so important to that account management approach where you could actually get into a company, be it a Rolex or a Lang's Jewelers or whatever. You could kind of go, right, here's a case study we've got for Rolex. Hi Cartier, this is what we've done for Rolex. Do you want some of that?
Yeah, exactly. It's really a case study, and another way of speaking about it is evidence. At the end of the day, it's kind of like not just what's the solution as well. Like when I was kind of looking at that, I completely agree with you. It's good to have that challenge up front. I use a kind of recipe. It's like something I give to my clients where I think you build the client up. So even if they are a big client, it's like, remember the person, why that company is so important and so prevalent. Like, so they have 56 locations, or they have like 4,000 staff that would be utilising this technology we're building for them. It kind of puts it in context, going, oh yeah, okay, like I suspected it was a big company, but I didn't know that. Then I usually dig into the problem challenge, but then what I do is not just the solution, but I try to pick sort of 3 unique things about the process. So let's say, for example, it's I kind of look at it through a lens myself, and the questions I ask internally are, what did we do that was unique in this project that's not usual? What showcases the way that we plan and think about a project? So it might be wireframes, or we actually built like a prototype to show how it would work and demo it with a client. So they actually had it in their hands as flat graphics they could click through before they committed serious funds to building like custom functionality. The testimonial, which is generally what we see, is a lot of websites I look at, they have a testimonials page. And I kind of get what they're trying to do there. It's like the doctor's surgery, and it's like, here's all my certificates and testimonials on the wall. It's like, these are all the people that I've made better or not killed. You should trust me to be your surgeon, kind of thing. But I look at it and I think it's kind of like noise, where you almost suffer blindness, like banner blindness in a way. Because how can you read all those testimonials? You can't. Whereas when you've kind of got that storytelling narrative, there's great books on it, like The Art of Selling Through a Story. And you're reading down and you're thinking, right, cool, I kind of buy into what Mark's saying here. It sounds good, it sounds like me, and it's brilliant. But then that testimonial's almost like a managing director of whatever the brand is, and you're thinking, bang, straight away you've got me, because now I'm thinking, if it's good enough for him, it's good enough for me. And in actual fact, people probably don't realise it, but people are quite coy. They will phone those companies and say, what's Mark like to work with? What's John like to work with? And you're thinking, that's good, like definitely
I
get it that kind of way.
Sorry, I use that with my case studies as well. Like any time that I'm stuck with, it's between me and another company, I will actually say that. I say, like, the case studies you're reading, I says, you can contact that person. I'll give you the name and the phone number, and you just can phone them and ask them anything that you want to ask them. Because that person's taking that time to do the case study with me. They are happy that it's on my website, so I can actually use that as a sales tool as well. So anytime that I say is like any chance, like, if somebody wants to contact you, can they contact you on your behalf? So they can, case studies can lead to so much
future
more.
work. Well, I think it's, see somebody asks you, like, can you give like 3 examples? I think there's a lot of power in the sense of turning around your laptop and saying, here's the 46 clients we support. Who would you like to talk to?
Yeah.
And they go, I'd really like to talk to A, Z and F. No problem at all. Send their contact details there. I've dropped them a small email just to say to expect your call. Feel free. And they've went and asked their own questions and stuff like that. Because I think there is a kind of tendency to shy away from, well, what if they don't give us a good review, what if that is? But then if you're asking yourself the questions, it's like, are you doing the right thing by the customer?
Yeah.
Because ultimately we shouldn't really have bad case studies for anybody that we're working with, because even if you just have a problem and you take ownership of it, I think the person will still be honest and say, in the round, they're a good company to work with. And actually it's quite healthy in a way to have a wee bit of challenge, to say things got a bit ropey there for a couple of days, but they took ownership of that problem. So definitely I'd be quite happy to recommend them.
And anybody that's like a normal person will know that everything's not all
it can't be perfect.
It can't be perfect, so it's good to probably explore. So I mean, we talk about case studies, which are probably like documents, like maybe like a 2-sided A4 sheet, maybe even 1-sided A4 sheet for some people. But you also get testimonials, as you just mentioned, which is like a comment. And even these testimonials could come through Google reviews or Facebook reviews or LinkedIn reviews. And then, in business to consumer world, you've also got things like TripAdvisor. So, I mean, what do you see probably the pros and cons of that versus like a case study?
Well, I think that the advocacy of having something on Google Review or, like, say, Google My Business or TripAdvisor or Trustpilot, what that really gives a business is that third party. It's like it's checked, right? So I could basically go to 10 friends that have not even got businesses and say, do me a favour, go onto my page, like family members literally that have a different surname because they've been married or something, go onto my page, leave me a 5-star review and just write, fantastic company to work with, highly recommend. But it doesn't have any weight because they're not really real consumers, not for a business like me that sells B2B. But that would maybe work if you were selling like hair products or cosmetics or different things like that. But Google's actually cracking down on that anyway, so there's a lot of companies now looking at it and checking, are these genuine or are these people kind of doing that in a sort of like orchestrated way? Because with digital technology we can all do that. It's very easy to say, right, what we'll do is as a cohort we'll work and we'll build good reviews for each other. But I think those platforms, it kind of like reduces the risk of that, because it's like, what's stopping me for really writing a fantastic case study, putting a great testimonial and then just picking some random dude from LinkedIn and saying that's the guy that said it. It's managing director of Diageo and X, and you're kind of thinking they might notice it, but see if you picked somebody that was like a previous managing director or somebody that's left, the chances of it getting picked up are slim to none. But the problem I have with that is it doesn't have any weight. So normally what I try to do is when I'm asking for a testimonial, a video testimonial is like king. It's way better because you're like, I can see the person saying it. That's definitely Mark Conley saying that. But if you do it as a testimonial and it's somebody just sending it as an email, I actually ask them, do me a favour, could you put that onto Google My Business? Because what I would like to do is to be able to reference back to that as a source of truth. So it's attached to your account. I can't put it in and I can't remove it. So it kind of just gives me that kind of legacy thing that I can reference back to. And I don't think a lot of people really ask you to prove it. But I think it's a good practice to be in a case of like, well, I can prove that. I can pull you up the email where that was said. I can show you the video. I can point you back to the Trustpilot. And although it could be faked in a roundabout way, it's quite a big kind of step to sort of try and move all the chips in your favour just for the sake of getting a testimony.
It's funny, so obviously business to consumer will be like TripAdvisor, all that sort of stuff. I think the buying cycle is a little bit different, because if I want to get a hotel or whatever, I will probably go on there first. But I speak to so many people, and again when I'm teaching and things like that, I speak to people, what you're doing is you sift through lots of people they're just generally moany. There's people that are just
Karen, as
it was keyboard warriors, isn't it? They go in there and there is a kind of, as they just in a bit of a mood. Whereas in a business to business environment, I feel that the case studies is a lot more kind of further down the line. They probably do look to a certain extent who have they worked with, can they get a solution from it, then they kind of start to get into the sort of case study type of thing as well. I do probably say, like, I know people have spammed with like Google reviews and things because we do SEO, and it's like, obviously Google My Business helps with local SEO.
And pushes people towards it.
I know people that will go out until like a $5 or a people per hour, and they'll actually pay for people to do Google reviews. And that's like, it's cheating. It is cheating. It's actually, people are going to go in to buy that and go, oh, that's a great service. Well, actually, you've just paid somebody just to write that review, but it's helping them obviously boost, the Google My Business ranking. But exactly, you said if you get something that's like absolute proof, it's the managing director of Diageo or whatever. One of the things that one of my clients has done, and I even do it to a certain extent as well, see if I get an email or even a LinkedIn post, I screenshot it.
Yeah, exactly. So you can see it in the context. And again, it's a lot of people wouldn't do that. They would kind of remaster it.
Mm-hmm.
But there's like a genuineness to like, here's like a snapshot of my WhatsApp chat or an email or I think it's such a powerful way of doing it. And it doesn't maybe look as branded, but it's more genuine.
And use it within the case study, like if you design up a case study, you can actually have that and there's a screenshot in it. You can have obviously the nice quotes, but you can say, like, here's some of the images, from the actual conversation that we had from it, because it is I think because people are now realising that there is fake reviews out there, and they're like, did that guy just say that because it's his friend or whatever? Because it's like, we've built up a case study, it's like he's probably just got a friend to do that, so they're
not going to give them a bum steer.
So having things, it's like shows it's a little bit more genuine by like having a screenshot. Or doing a video as well, and that's what I said. Video is just so powerful; it comes straight out the mouth and says who they are, and you can see if somebody's being genuine on video because you can see the personality of it
coming across. I'd be interested to kind of talk about as well, like good examples of case studies you've seen online, because the one that kind of jumps to mind for me is Fantasy Interactive. I was completely obsessed by that company when I was younger. Like, so when I was kind of 8-9 years old, I'm like, these guys built an agency in an airport hangar. They had all these amazing videos, but this was like a time when the internet was like dial-up and horrendous. Websites were still getting built out of Flash. That was the hot thing at the time. And then you would see this kind of thing going, when I describe the people that work for FI, we're looking for half Mummy's Boys and half this, and you're kind of, but it draws you in. You just get sucked into the story, and you're thinking, this is brilliant, and it shows you on the plane and they're flying out to see Ford and the guy's coding, and it's kind of like, it brings it to life. And then they use the exact same technique where they cut away to like the corporate guy where he says, it's try to do the accents, but it's like kind of the reason we picked FI was because they're like whatever it was. So he's going into it, but he's giving it his contacts, but it comes up managing director of Ford or Time Warner or all these kind of amazing companies, and I thought that still sticks with me today, and they're still on YouTube even now. Like, you literally go back and see them. I mean, they're old as the hills because obviously camera technology has came on leaps and bounds, but I thought, what leverage? Because really what they're showcasing there is, we've worked for Ford, we've worked for Time Warner, we've worked for Microsoft, and they're kind of name dropping all these amazing companies. But then there probably is a bit of kind of like the executive looking at that thinking, I would like to be that guy. I'd like to be the guy that's commissioning the cool idea, the innovation, because these are brands, are mega brands. They want to work with the latest and greatest, but you're like, how many people do that? So even with a testimonial, you could say, okay, how did you like the project? Tell me one thing you liked, one thing you didn't like, one thing you would change. And I think with those kind of interviews, you can learn so much. Because I've kind of thought a lot about this myself for our own case studies, and what I'm kind of considering doing is, tell me one thing that you loved about the project, and then I was going to say, tell me one thing that was surprising with the project, like something you didn't expect would be part of the process. But then I was going to spin the other way and say, tell me one thing you hated or one thing you would change. And that won't necessarily go in the case study, but what it will do is it will inform me of where there's kind of gaps, like thought the communication could have been a little bit better, or I think the way this particular element of the project was managed was a bit kind of woolly. and it will kind of show me where to tighten up. So it's kind of like your hairdresser. If we do a good job, tell others.
Yeah.
If we do a bad job, tell us.
Mm-hmm.
So you're kind of trying to control it, and I mean you could do a full topic just on that in the sense of like damage limitation, because you of course get 1-star reviews, which is the exact opposite, and that can cause absolute mayhem with your brand.
I know, but you kind of hit the nail on the head there. I've seen some great ones, and I think the best case studies I've seen is when you get to see the full story, and that's really creative, where it's not, it's not just looking at the buyer and how you solve their problem, but it's also bringing in the story of the business, but in a very subtle way of, this is what you're going to get, this is the process that you're going to go through, this is how we're going to take care of you, this is what our kind of culture is as well, and this is also how we solve the problem, because it's the whole thing that they're buying into, because it's like, oh great, you worked for that Ford company, you solved a problem, but are you going to solve my problem, and how is it going to work? Because I mean, I get asked this question. It's like, how do you work? What is your process? Yes, we know that you can do the job, but there's a little bit more to it. It's like, are you going to hold my hand the whole way, through it, and make sure that everything's great, and who's going to be my point of contact? It's all that sort of stuff that they really want. It's about enjoying the journey rather than getting to the end.
Well, it's that kind of way. I mean, even if we just look at our sector, and I think a lot of kind of designers and probably amateurs in the field have damaged this for the rest of us. Even just in the last month alone, I've had 3 or 4 people come to me and say, I've been quoted £1,100 for a website, £250 and £99, and I'm thinking, how does that even work as a process? Like, the math just doesn't stack up. And I'm thinking, well, the difference will be they're not actually putting the time and effort into it. So if they're charging £99, let's be sort of like realistic about it and imagine the person's charging about £24 an hour, like as a freelancer or something. So they're only spending 4 hours on the website. Either that, or they're quite happy to just take a massive loss just to get the portfolio kind of case study. But you're thinking, it kind of dilutes the market and damages it. But like, we get asked and challenged on it, like, so how can you charge 5,000, 10,000, 20,000, 100,000 for a system? And you go, well, I'll break it down. I'm not trying to hide anything. It's like, so we spend this amount of time in planning, we spend this amount of time in design, we spend that amount of time in coding. This is testing and UAT, like user acceptance testing with the client. Then there's probably changes and amends, the launch, kind of configuring the servers. And when you kind of break it down for them, they're like, wow, I didn't realise as much time went into websites. Yeah. But that's the thing I think that people on our side of the fence forget. People don't really know how websites are actually built. Like, I remember my wife shared a funny story, and she was saying, well, what happened? So John designs it in Photoshop, and then you drag the design into Google, and it builds a website for you. And I'm like, wow, that's a interesting take on how the internet works. And I'm like, wow, but there probably is people out there that think, was it no just drag and drop and you're done? And you're like, oh, how many devices do you think, like, how many mobile phones do you think are in existence? And they're like, you're like, well, there's thousands, just to kind of ruin it and put a spoiler in there. How many browsers is there? So you've got Safari, IE, Edge, Firefox, Chrome. Then you've got all your Mac OS and PC and Ubuntu, and then people are like, what, you testing all of them? You're like, yeah. So we pay licenses to things like Browser Stack, so we can literally test all through these kind of things. But it is interesting, because a case study really is your only chance to communicate that there is a lot more to this process.
It's an absolute great point.
We don't just go, there you go, tick, and the site's live. I wish it was like that, in the sense of, you come to me and we run it through an automated machine, and at the other side you have a fantastic website. But it's a sort of injustice to you as a client, because you don't sell the same way as me, but you're still successful. I sell a totally different way, I'm still successful. But that's the whole point. Your business is unique. You're not a cookie cutter organisation, so why the hell would you want a cookie cutter website?
It's a really, really great point. And that's where you can be creative with your case studies as well, because you can show your full process, but you can also make them start asking questions with it. This is what we do, how we build a website, or this is how we built a website for XYZ company, and we went through this. We went to the project. We got the whiteboard up. We found out what their marketing message was. We then gave them free designs versus a company that's doing it for £99 or £250, because they would then go, well, how is he doing that for £250? Am I going to get all of this value? So they're going to get to come in. Well, no, actually, what their case study would be, they go into Fiverr or People Per Hour. Somebody's going to do the website for £100, and they're going to take £150, to kind of cover it. It's like that's how they're doing it.
Well, just as in case anybody listening is in any doubt, it's basically a Blue Peter number. Here's one I made earlier. That's it. They're going to put your logo at the top of something and probably say you're done.
Yeah, and that's the thing. It's like you can use a case study when somebody comes up and says you're £5,000, £10,000 more than the other person, and you go, well, have this. Here's a case study. Speak to the people that we've already done it for, and they'll explain it to you to explain the value. And that's where the importance of a case study can come into as well, because it's like, right, okay, you get all that, I get it now. It's like, and that's where they can have that understanding. So you can sell them so much stuff like features and benefits, but actually the case study is the one that kind of says, there's your belief, there's your evidence, as you said, there's your evidence of that's why it costs that.
It's a brilliant place to wrap up as well. For yourself, like, what's your belter? Like, what would you say for people listening? Like, the one thing they could do.
I would probably say don't be don't be fearful of trying to ask your customers for case studies. I think that's a big thing for people, and I think a lot of people are scared that they're going to get bad reviews. If they wouldn't be buying from you, and they wouldn't be repeat buying from you if they didn't like your service. So ultimately, don't be fearful, and just ask for more case studies. It's like the more case studies you have, the more success stories that you have, then it's just going to help you increase your business, increase your sales, and it helps you in so many ways, as we've explained. It gives you so much evidential proof. What about you? What's your business belter?
So for me, the one thing I would say a company should do is start the process early. So as soon as the project starts, ask the client, why did you come to us? They're going to tell you, there's that section. Then look out for the kind of milestones. So every time you think, that's quite cool, or they think that's quite unusual, I should put that in the case study. And then what you'll end up with is all the Lego bricks to assemble the case study before you even kind of launch the product. Because I think a lot of people, they wait to the end, or even myself, I've got case studies right now that I know I should write up. I done the work almost a year ago, and you're thinking some of the companies have amazing leverage, but I've kind of not put in that time. So people don't factor time for the case study. So let's just say it's an 8-week project. I would factor in 10 weeks and make sure that the case study is those 2 weeks, so that's getting done by the staff, because otherwise they're going to say, well, we don't have the time to design the case study because we're moving on to the next project. You say, actually, you do have the time because I put it in the project roadmap. So I would say start the process early and always look out for the things you can kind of leverage. Yeah,
I mean, just adding a point just in there, this is something as a little tip that you could use as well, is when you're selling to somebody and they're asking for a discount, say, well, we're going to get can we get a case study at the end of this after the whole success of it? So you can always factor it into your...
to leverage to make sure it's there up front. Do you want to wrap us up, Mark?
Yes, so thank you very much everyone for tuning in today. Again, I hope you're really enjoying this podcast and the series of podcasts. As always, please can you like and share so that we can get more of a following and get more people listening to it. And again, if you feel if there's any other topics or you've got any good examples of case studies, please feel free to give us some feedback and tell us, some good examples of case studies that you've seen in the past. So it's a goodbye from me.
That's a goodbye for me.